this could be the first F1 inspired engine, Z4 Coupe. Have you ever thought about putting a V8 in a BMW Z4? Well, that's what I'm doing. I have started my dream car project. I've bought an M3 V8 manual and I intend to put that engine into the second car I acquired, an 07 Z4 Coupe. So far I have stripped down the Z4, removed that 3 litre straight 6 engine. I have dragged the M3 into the build tent, removed the S65 V8, and I've swung it round straight into the Z4 engine bay for an initial test fit. Does it fit? Let's find out. Well, looking at the engine now, I think it's safe to say the verdict is it doesn't fit. Or it will fit with some fettling and some modifications. It's very tight. I'll show you what's going on here. Exhaust manifold is against the chassis like that side. I definitely need to remove this return line for the fuel here, and then I'll go for another test fit. It's a snug fit for sure. My plan initially is to lower the subframe on the Z4 as the sump on the engine is catching there, meaning I can't get the engine and gearbox level to test fit it. We'll start with this and see what happens. We've definitely dropped the subframe low enough now. Easy does it now. I think there's a few more bits I need to take off. There's a bit more heat protection down there, which I think will cause me some issues. I'll get that removed and then we'll see if we can level this engine out. This bit here I'm taking off. See how this thing fits in. I think I'm gonna have to pull the motor out of the car a bit before I level it. It's too close to the bulkhead. I will now see how easy it is to lift the gearbox up from underneath the car. Not easy. I'm starting to level it out now. I have the trusty jack under it and also a block of wood. Looking pretty good. I'm thinking the engine can go back even further, but even now most of the weight is over the back of the front axle. The top mount is well over towards the front of the engine. It's looking promising. This is a nice first milestone for the project. We finally have the engine in the Z4. Now there is quite a lot to consider when it comes to mounting this engine in place. The next big concern is how the subframe is going to sit underneath the engine. I think that's what we need to try and do next. Subframe in place, I can now support the engine on its own. I have put a couple of wooden spaces between the sump and the subframe. At the moment we're still in the dark whether it's the right height or not. By lowering it onto the subframe it should level the engine out from side to side. Check the car's not going to tip over, it'd be a shame. Right, now I can safely get the engine crane out the way for a bit. I'm intrigued to know how much of the bonnet needs to be modified for this build. I'll put the intake plenum back on, then we'll know if we need a massive bonnet bulge or not. I'm just making sure it's completely flush on the intake. I think it's pretty close. The moment of truth. I think I know what's going to happen here. Recently we hit 1 million views on our channel and I thought it's a good time to give back. I find myself here in Africa. I've brought some t-shirts with me to give away. I have some classic switchback tees and I'm excited to find them some new owners. Boys want a t-shirt? channel is completely self-funded, so any support for our brand will help us do the builds we do and generally mess around with cars. Check out blendline.co.uk. We've got all sorts in there. Anyway, back to the build. It's not actually as bad as I thought it would be. It's not horrendous. If the engine does stay this height, I think I will be able to get away with minimal modifications to the bonnet. If I take this center structure out, I think there should be just enough clearance to get the bonnet shut. It would be nice to keep the bonnet standard, just to reduce the complications of modifying it and making it look right. The next thing to check for clearance is the alternator. I want to make sure this fits on within the chassis leg. Yeah, that should definitely fit in place. As I have previously predicted, the limiting factor for getting the engine back towards the bulkhead is the exhaust manifold where the chassis leg starts to go in. That's about the max it can go, which I'm very happy with, as again the engine is really far back over the center line of the front wheel. Clearance on the tunnel is okay for the gearbox. There is an air gap down either side. Believe it or not, it does look very close. I have reference to the ground clearance. If you remember, I took a reading when the car was still on the floor. I'll get the under tray on because I believe I took the measurement from the under tray, the lowest point, to the floor, which was 90mm. But this is exciting. It's cool to see the engine in place pretty much. One of the next things I need to think about is the steering rack. If I use a rack from the Z4M, which is the hydraulic version, I'll have to get one of those pretty quickly to make sure I can fit it alongside this engine. Also, I need to decide on what engine mounts to run. It's probably going to be easier to use universal ones, as both the M3 and the Z4 ones are quite bulky, but overall I'm really happy with the progress. I did have a check to see if the M3 rack could fit on the Z4. However, the mounting is completely different and the lack of similarities between the subframe, it simply won't work. It's a shame because that's 2.8 lock to lock, which matches this car. I could go for an Pt.6 M3 rack, which is a 3-turn, or the Z4M, which is a 2.8. That would be the ideal option. However, they are a lot more rare. I have taken the gear linkage from the M3 just to see how off we are when it comes to fitting into this car. I think the M3 gearbox is a bit longer, so we may have to do some cutting on the tunnel. To make things easier, I'm just going to take it apart. There we go. Don't have to mess around with this stupid cover anymore. Surprisingly, I have the opposite problem. Going from a saloon to a coupe layout, the shifter actually lands around there somewhere, which is not ideal because I want to be sat further back. I'm thinking some linkage lengthening is required. Well. Here's the M3 shifter linkage. This is the one from the Z4. Very, very similar sticks. Fairly similar on the back end. The crucial thing is I could probably get this to fit, not a million miles out. I can offer this up and this could be used to make the gear stick even further back in the car. As it's quite a bit longer, we'll have a look. I've just tried it on the car. This could work quite well. I've decided to use the factory position for the gear stick, and if I want to move the shifter back, I'll make another dogleg gear stick. This keeps things relatively simple. I will shorten this piece. I'll extend the arm from the M3 gearbox to fit this. That will stay OEM, and I'm happy that's all achievable once we get the final position of the gearbox. And to get that final position of the gearbox, I need to make sure the steering rack is going to work. This means I'm going to bolt the Z4 one back on. I'll have to lift the engine up slightly. I've checked where the hydraulic lines go on the Z4M rack, so I can test it now to see if it will fit with the S65 in place. By using this top mounted engine crane, I can take the pressure off the engine, lift it off the subframe slightly, then I can drop the subframe underneath. Then this will allow me to get the steering rack back into place, hopefully. There we go. Okay, that's bolted in place. Now I'm thinking the clearance between this part of the sump and the steering rack is going to be too tight, meaning I need to pull the engine a fraction towards the front of the car. Not ideal. I can't see any other easy solution. The beauty of keeping the rack where it is now means it doesn't mess up any of the geometry of the steering at the front of the car. I'm willing to compromise engine position ever so slightly. This is the current issue I have. I think that part of the rack is where the hydraulic lines come out. You can see if I lift the subframe up now, it's going to hit that part of the sump. That part isn't too bad. I didn't think I'd have to pull the engine to the front about an inch though. That's not particularly good. Now I'm going to check that the engine is central in the engine bay. I think you can afford to go over this way a bit, so I'm going to measure it from the chassis leg either side to the cam covers and see what we've got. I don't feel I have much choice. but to move this engine forward. Checking the levels from side to side. This bank is a little lower, so I need to make sure I square that off before I do any final measurements. I've bolted the subframe back up. It's still really tight under here. I'm thinking I might have to reposition the steering rack where it bolts to the subframe. I can afford to bring the rack back slightly, which will give me more clearance up here. It's getting complicated. I am removing the steering rack and subframe now. I can then get it on the bench and show you what exactly we're dealing with. There it goes. There we have it, it's off. You can see where it was rubbing on the sump of the engine. Now my issue is, I have to think about this. In the ideal world, I need to move the rack, or whatever rack I'm using, further in towards the subframe. This will be achievable because there is a gap. However, I am limited to how far I can go in order to not screw up the steering geometry and to avoid potential contact between the wishbone and the control arm. Now I've been looking online to see if I can see the layout of the rack I might need. This one is for an E46 M3. You can see the body there is much larger than the one I have. I'm thinking the sensible thing to do is to order the one I want to use. Then I'll know more likely what I'm dealing with. I also have the hydraulic lines to deal with, which I may have to rework to work with the subframe and this V8 engine. Everything engine related will have to pause, as all of my decisions now are linked in making the final decision in where this beast is going to go. Once we figure out the steering system, then its final layout, engine mount, then we think about mounting the gearbox because we'll know the position of that, and so on. The next sensible thing to do is to start stripping more of the M3 apart. I need to remove the differential, which I can then look at getting fitted into the rear subframe on the Z4. All of this will need an overhaul. I think I'm going to start stripping down more of the engine bay. If you want to buy anything you can see here, apart from the engine loop and a few other bits, let me know. Lines for the power steering cooler. Plan for the M3. The sensible thing now is to put the subframe back on while it's still relatively one piece. I can whip the wheels on, drag the car back outside, then I can get it elevated for the full strip down, meaning I have this space back, as at the moment I'm working in a very confined space. I'll get the bolts back in, wheels on, and then see where we go from there. I'm now ready to tow the car out of the tent. However, I do need to straighten out the wheels, meaning I need power to the car. Fingers crossed nothing shorts out, as everything is disconnected. Of course, I need to check it's in neutral. Yeah, I think it's in neutral. Check for smoke. Alright, let's do this quick. Radio still works. So what happens if I take the handbrake off? We may roll forward. I didn't go to plan. Alright, let's just tow it. I'm not sure how well this is going to go. I've got the trusty Skoda to tow me out. Let's hope for the best. This isn't working particularly well. I've almost crashed the car before I've even built it. The two-wheel drive Skoda isn't working. Right, See if you can go forward again. Yeah? That's it. Right, stop. Okay. Well, I managed to pull it outside. If I get the engine crane, I can lift the front up, try and get it on these two ramps, and then get the back elevated, and we can start the full strip down. About an hour till I have to cook some dinner. Let's see if we can get the diff out in 1 hour. Challenge on. I wouldn't want to sit on that. That's a bad time, that is. Shenanigans definitely going on here. More cable tie technicians. Lots of seized bolts. That's my excuse. What a beast. Nice little X-pipe in the middle. Before I can drop the subframe, I need to loosen the dampers from the top, meaning I need to get all of this trim out, as the access hole in the carpet is actually not cut, weirdly. So I'll do that on both sides. Slight change of plan. Top of the struts have a center lock with a nut. You need to undo the nut while holding the top. I don't have the toolage for that. Plan B is just to unbolt it from the lower arm. Current situation, the screen's broken on the camera, so I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if the light balance is correct. I've punched myself in the face after slipping on a bolt, trying to loosen the lower part of the damper on that side. What else have I done? I managed to do that to my extension because they're super tight. And I have broken that extension. I shouldn't be using 3/8 really, but you know. Yeah. And I'll have to get another camera, I guess, because I can't see what I'm filming. This is probably as good a place as any to end this episode. I did want to get the diff off, but you don't always win. We have covered some ground. Progress has been a little slow. Once I get a steering rack, we can really get to grips with where the engine is going to go. Yet more parts to sort out. Personally, I'm really enjoying this project so far. It should be an exciting finished product. Hope you guys are enjoying it too, and I'll see you very soon. I think some linkage lengthening.